Ever wondered what the legal difference is between a planned group fight and, say, a chaotic mob? Well, today, we're going to break that down using a tale of two very different college brawls. Trust me, it's the perfect way to illustrate a really crucial legal concept. So, let's get right into it.
So, what is the real difference? I mean, when a small group of people attack someone, the law has one way of looking at it. But when a massive crowd gets involved, the whole legal framework just shifts. This distinction is absolutely at the heart of India's new criminal laws, and it all boils down to two key ideas: common intention versus common object.
To really get our heads around this, we're going to look at two classic college fight scenarios. These stories are perfect for showing why the law needs two completely different tools to handle group violence. First up, we've got a classic case of some seniors deciding to teach a junior a lesson. Okay, so imagine this. 3 seniors feel a junior has been disrespectful. They meet up, they talk about it, and they decide, you know what? We're going to rough them up after class. There's a clear plan and a shared goal, right? When the time comes, all 3 of them get involved. One grabs him, the other 2 land the punches. Everybody has an active role in what's happening. This is a textbook example of what the law calls common intention.
So common intention really just rests on 3 simple pillars. First, there's got to be some pre-planning, what the law calls a meeting of minds. Second, everyone has to actively participate. And third, they actually have to commit the crime they set out to do. To prove guilt here, the prosecution has to show that all 3 seniors played their part. And with a small group, that's relatively straightforward.
Simple enough, right? But things get complicated, and they get complicated fast. I mean, what happens when it's not 3 seniors, but an entire hostel? What happens when a bit of school spirit turns into a full-blown mob?
Okay, so let's jump to our second fight. This time, a junior from our college gets into it with a student from a rival college, and the outsider lands a punch. Word spreads like wildfire. The junior calls his seniors, and suddenly it's not 3 guys anymore. The entire hostel, we're talking 75 students, empties out and heads to the scene. The goal? Simple. Defend their own.
And this right here raises a huge question. In that massive crowd of 75 students, maybe only a few people at the very front are actually fighting. The rest? They're just standing there, shouting, adding to the noise and the chaos. So, are they legally innocent? Trying to prove that every single one of those 75 people actively participated is, well, it's practically impossible. And this is precisely the problem the law needed to solve. This is where the law completely shifts gears. It moves away from common intention and brings in a whole different concept: common object. See, when you have a crowd of 5 or more people, the law stops caring so much about whether you personally threw a punch. Instead, it starts asking a totally different question. Were you part of an unlawful crowd with a shared illegal purpose?
So let's break down the differences because they're really important. For common intention, you just need 2 or more people, but you have to prove their active role. For common object, the key number is 5 or more, and the requirement totally flips from active participation to just your physical presence, your membership in that group. Proving guilt is no longer about what each person did, but simply about showing they were knowingly part of that unlawful assembly.
This quote really explains the whole philosophy behind it. Think about it. Those 70 or so students who are just standing there, their sheer presence gives courage and strength to the few who are actually fighting. They're part of the intimidation. They create the mob mentality. And because of that, the law says their mere membership in that unlawful group makes them responsible for the actions of the whole.
But hold on, does this mean any group of 5 or more people is an unlawful assembly? No, of course not. You and 4 friends meeting up for a coffee is totally fine. The law, specifically Section 189 of the new Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, that's India's new penal code, is super precise about this. An assembly only becomes unlawful if it gets together for one of 5 very specific illegal purposes or objects.
And these are the 5. They cover a whole range of things, from intimidating the government and resisting the police to committing a crime like trespassing or assault. It also includes stuff like forcibly taking property or stopping someone from exercising a basic right, like, say, preventing a community from using a public well. If your group's main purpose falls into one of these buckets, you've crossed a serious line.
Now that first point uses a pretty specific legal term, to overawe. What on earth does that mean? Well, it doesn't necessarily mean using actual violence. It means using the sheer force of numbers and fear to intimidate and influence public servants. So imagine a huge angry crowd surrounding a municipal office to stop an official from doing their job. That's overawing.
Now, this is a really critical point. The crime is committed the moment the group gathers with one of those unlawful goals. They don't have to actually commit the assault or the trespass yet. Just forming the assembly with that illegal purpose is in itself an offense. You can see why, right? It's a preventative measure, designed to break up mobs before things can explode into violence.
So what happens if you find yourself part of a group like this? Well, the law lays out a very clear ladder of escalating punishments, and it all depends on the circumstances.
Just for being a knowing member of an unlawful assembly, you could be looking at up to 6 months in jail. If the police command the crowd to disperse and you refuse to leave, that penalty jumps up to 2 years. And it's the same punishment if you're part of that assembly while carrying a deadly weapon. You can see how the law is clearly trying to de-escalate these situations at every single step.
So, through all of this, just remember the magic number, 5. It's the bright line that separates these two legal ideas. If you have fewer than 5 people, prosecutors have to prove everyone's active role under common intention. But the second you hit 5 or more, the whole game changes to common object, where just being a member of that unlawful group is enough. So, what's the big takeaway here? This whole distinction between common intention and common object, it's not just lawyers splitting hairs. It's a really practical tool that recognizes the fundamental difference between a calculated crime and the chaotic, dangerous energy of a mob. And it gives law enforcement the tools they need to maintain public order by, hopefully, stopping things before they get out of hand.
But this leaves us with a fascinating and, let's be honest, a very real-world question. We know that a lawful gathering can suddenly become unlawful. So think about a peaceful protest that suddenly turns violent. At what precise moment does that group of people who are just exercising their democratic rights become an unlawful assembly in the eyes of the law? It's a really complex line to draw and definitely something to think about.